In this video, I'm going to now cover Netexec and the LDAP protocol. So this lab is just a home lab made with VirtualBox. I have a VM with Kata that I'm going to be working off of. I also have a domain controller, a certificate authority, and a workstation spun up as well. They sometimes go down, so I'll just pause the video if they do to get them back up. But that's what I'm running with. And if you haven't been to the Netexec website, they have a pretty good wiki. I always suggest bookmarking this one, go into it whenever you have some questions that you might look at getting answered, or if you just want to keep up on some of their new releases. Always good to check up on things here. So I already came up with a video that focused on SMB protocol, so I'm not really going to get into the weeds with authentication since it's covered there, and they very much mirror themselves. You can see authentication, you can use username, password, you can use the ID from the database, and then you also have the option of using Kerberoasting and certificate authentication as well. So if those are all unfamiliar, you can head over to the SMB video, use the table of contents to just find the chapter on that, watch it, get spun up and then come back, or you can just watch that first and then come back to this one later, whatever you want to do, or just read the wiki. It's kind of self-explanatory in how it authenticates, but I'm not going to cover that in this one because it would be a little redundant, and for the sake of time, it's just not gonna happen in this one. Okay, so but one thing I did cover in the other one was how to generate a host file. I don't think I have anything in mine here, so let me just verify that. Yeah, so it's cleaned up. So I will use at least something from that to create, and whoops, let me throw the whole subnet in here. So that's going to it's going to generate a host file, and it's going to put that information in a file called hosts. And now I'm just going to go ahead and have that written out to go into my host file. So I'm going to cat that out and pipe that over into sudo. And let's throw it in etc hosts, and I should get prompted here for, there we go. All right, so that should do it. Verify, yeah, it's all in there. Okay, cool. So my host file is updated, and that just helps me work through some things here if I decide to use some different methods. But okay, so kind of going back to where things were in the other video, just like with SMB, and just like you just saw me use here, you can throw the -H for help and get a lot of information here. So like I said, I'm not going to really cover the authentication part. I will go over some of the modules that they have, and I'll go over some Asreproast, Kerberoasting, things like that, and really just from there on down is where I'm going to focus. There is a few things that are repeats. You got password policy, enumerating users and things like that, but there are some differences here. Again, like you could do all the some of the other things above. You can also look for GMSA and Bloodhound can be executed using LDAP. The other caveat to this protocol versus the SMB protocol is on SMB side, you had some of these options, and you had to be a high-level user to run. With LDAP, you can pretty much run all these as a low-level user, and even on the module side, I think there's just one high-level user module. Everything else is just done with a low-level user account, so that's just something to note. So SMB had the ability to do some sort of user, and I can't type this morning, some sort of user enumeration, right? So let me just kind of use this to make things faster here. All right, so .100 is my domain controller. That's pretty much what's going to have LDAP running on it right now, right? My username and password, I save all the passwords in a file and use them that way. And but just like before with SMB, you can enumerate users, right? And you can see there's a few users here. You get some descriptions here, which may or may not have sensitive information. Here you got some potential passwords. So again, similar to just the SMB side. Now the one thing that you can do here that don't recall seeing on SMB, but it could be there and I just didn't pay attention, was you can use that and export it with the users export option here. And the only thing you need to feed it after this is going to be a text file name. So, users export, I'm in the Star Wars domain. Maybe I just want to give it Star Wars users in case I'm doing a multi-domain environment. And it doesn't export all this junk. It just creates a word list for you. So if I were to then cat that out, you can see I now have a workable word list. So if I needed to progress with something else that requires a word list, I have one here available and I can use that. So pretty cool feature. You saw there was a pretty good amount of users on that. So we can also do some more enumeration that is on the active user side. And that's nothing more than active users. And what we'll see here is there is a difference here. So if we cat this one out, you can see that I have more users than is being outputted from the active side, right? And that's because, well, some of these are not active, they're disabled. And I would say it's from these three on down. So you got Jabba, Princess Leia, and Obi-Wan are all disabled accounts, whereas Han Solo all the way up to D. Vader looks like is active. And then again, we've got two more disabled accounts and then another enabled. So that can be helpful, especially if you are trying to just target accounts that you can actually hit that are active, that are worth going after, and not necessarily hitting a bunch of bunk users that are going to get you nowhere. Okay, so kind of cruising along here. The next thing we're going to do was the Asrep and Kerberoasting kind of stuff. So just kind of using it still. DMAL is a low-level user. And let's make sure I don't misspell that. I'm pretty sure that's spelled right, but I'll know for sure in a minute. So all you need again to do here is provide it a file name. So I can do again SW, and if there's anything there, and you can see there is, it says I have a total record of 1 returned, and it should eventually dump out a hash here. And it's also going to write it to this text file, which I can then use with hashcat, and that's going to be -18200, I believe. And let's just use, I think I have, there we go. That way we're not waiting forever and a day to have this thing run. I just have a few passwords in a unique file called passwords.txt. Excuse me, but yeah, you can put the path to whatever word list it is you wanted to run that off of, and see what happens. So yep, you can see I got one hit, so it did crack successfully, and cool. So that is that one. Let's jump over, and pretty much it's just going to be no different really from the Kerberoasting side. And I'm going to again give that the SW for Star Wars so I can keep things kind of separated out. But now it's Kerberoasting all the accounts within the Star Wars domain, and I've got a SQL service, and I have a SQL dev, and just like with the previous example, I can just send those again. This file is ready to go with hashcat. I can use hashcat to try and crack those hashes, which I'm not going to do because, again, sake of time here. But that's how you can Asreproast and do your Kerberoasting, and then attempt to crack the hashes, right? So the other part of that is, let's say you kind of don't want to go down the path of hitting all of the different users, right? And let me just verify. I'm pretty sure there is a feature for just targeting a user. There it is. So yeah, if you're able to enumerate service accounts and wanted to target just one account, maybe for the sake of OPSEC or something like that, then you can definitely just use the Kerberoast-account, provide that account name, and it'll Kerberoast that one account, just similar to what you can do with the in-packet tools as well, because that's what if I'm not mistaken, this is pretty much working off of, right? Okay, so along with this, you can use LDAP queries. Let's go to here. Let me just go back to help here, and again, we're kind of going down this list here. So here we are, LDAP queries. All right, so you can use base DN or query. And with those queries, let me pull these up. Some things you can reference would be, just the Microsoft sites here, and I'll drop those in the table of contents down below. So if you wanted to pop these up, bookmark them, they're helpful to have. I would definitely take the time if you're not familiar with them, because I'm definitely not able to memorize all these. It would be to build out queries ahead of time that are potentially useful for you. So what I'll use is this one to do some matching here, and then you can look up the UACs associated with these and use them, right? So we'll do a little bit of that and other ways to use the filter in the querying here. So let me clean this up. Let me go back up again to something here and knock out query. And there's one right there, so I'm just going to tab over. So what I'm doing is I want to match anything that has this decimal here, and if I were to pull this decimal up, I'm looking for any account that has don't require pre-auth. All right, and since we just ran Asreproast, should be able to. I don't know if I stayed on that one long enough, but there is one user, and that user is H Solo, so Han Solo. That's one way you can use that feature. Another one would be you can just do basic username or user enumeration, right? So we'll just give the same account name of dvader, and then you can look. Hey, I want to see all of it. Oh wait, hold on. Let me go back here. That's my fault. One more. That should work. And nope, it is not that. It is this. There we go. Always some cool thing to fat finger stuff. So yeah, it shouldn't matter. Sometimes you just never know. But anyway, so that's going to dump all the information. If you wanted or needed this, there you go. But if you wanted to just pull out something very specific with this, then you could just throw it in here, right? I want to see what this person is a member of. And now I get, okay, they're a member of these groups. Got it, cool. So just like any other normal LDAP querying that you can do either from a tool or via living off the land on a host itself. So that is that, and again, we can use that for other users as well. I'm going to just keep picking on Han Solo just to see what this person might be a member of. Backup operators, account operators, good information, cool. Okay, so beating the dead horse, right? So the other one jump into is delegation, and what we can run here would be, let me just up arrow that, and I keep using the same user just mainly because I want to showcase that, hey, a low-level user can do this. Let me see, do I have this user's hash? I do not. That's fine. Okay, so just continuing on with the password, I'm going to look at find delegation. So is there any delegation around that I can abuse? And it looks like there is. And SQL Dev looks like has constrained delegation. So the output to me is a little compared to if I were to use the in-packet find delegation Python script, but it still works. It gives me, okay, I at least know that I can start focusing on SQL Dev. And I think I Kerberoasted that earlier, so if I was able to get that password or that user's hash somehow, then I could potentially abuse this, right? And I'm going to say that I do have that user's, yeah, I do have the password. Okay, so that would have been successfully correct if I had ran that in with Hashcat. So I'm just going to kind of run with that one. And so now after that, if I wanted to, I could also look for trusted delegation, which is another option. And again, low-level user can perform all of these different options within the LDAP protocol here. And I can see the standard, okay, I got it. From unconstrained delegation point of view, I have, the standard computer accounts here can perform that. Got it, cool. So, but running along with that, that constrained delegation, and this ventures out of LDAP and over to SMB, but there is an SMB, and let's just go check it out. Option, I believe, is an option for performing delegation. So I'll showcase that real quick because it's not very difficult to do, and Netexec just makes it easy. So I want to say it's up at the top here. There we go. So you do have delegate SPN. Okay, so I can perform some attacks with Netexec and that. So let me clean this up. Let me go back up to here and let's see if we can run this delegation. So delegate, let's go with the administrator, and we need to, there was an SPN assigned, and I think it was CIFS, and I think by default it'll just use CIFS, but let's go ahead and just specify it anyway and see if this gets me anywhere. It did not like that, so I must have missed something here. It doesn't, oh, it's because I forgot to send that to SMB. That's the problem with my up arrowing. All right, there we go. And that did not work. Let me check to make sure my host is still up. It appears to still be up. Oh, now I'm really just, it's too early in the morning here. Yeah, so, okay. DMAL does not have constrained delegation. SQL Dev does. And I'm sure someone watching this was like, hey dude, SQL Dev. So, all right. It still does not like my SPN here. So let me run this again. It should work with the SPN. It doesn't like that. All right, something is fugly here. And I'm pretty sure, let's just run the full qualified domain name here. It just does not like, so this isn't so much, and I just want to kind of focus on that part. I've got it's basically erroring on my arguments. So it doesn't like this and this. And let me just run help again. And why do I keep running LDAP? So I'm a moron. Let me do SMB one more time here. And then let me, oh, hold on. I mean, was I doing that the whole time? Yeah. Okay, I'm just a moron. All right. So it didn't recognize my arguments again because I kept using LDAP. This is an SMB module, or I'm sorry, an SMB protocol. And yeah, I'm just moron right now. So you can see it worked. And now as long as I run this, I'm abusing constrained delegation and I have the elevated privileges. So I'm now running as an administrator. So I can do other things like, and I don't think there's anything going to dump here because I have not logged into the domain controller, but I can start performing, credential harvesting. So there's some good information there. Cool. So yeah, that's abusing it, and I know that went outside of LDAP, even though I tried to force it. But that's how you can continue on down the road with abusing constrained delegation from, or with rather Netexec, using the correct account and using the correct protocol. Don't be like me. Okay, so let me go back up to LDAP because that's where I want to be, and let's jump back to my low-level user here, not SMB. Keep going up. There we go. So another one would be admin count, and so that's just as easy as admin count. And now I get a quick look at who the admins are. All right, so easy day. Password policy, like I said, overlaps with the SMB protocol. So no difference there from the SMB side. It is all the same. And the other cool thing that is here is GMSA. So let's run GMSA. And you can see that DMAL is able to actually read the GMSA password that is in the NTLM hash. Okay, so now you could pass the hash as this account and see what other access you get. So it's just increasing and enhancing your ability to move laterally, pivot, whatever it is, and impersonate a different user or computer account. Excuse me. So, but I do want to show that it doesn't mean everyone can just do that. So dvader is a domain admin. Okay. So let's try to see what a domain admin can see as far as GMSA is concerned. And it's working, and nothing. And actually, it should have still spit out the same information, but just, hey, is unable to read this. So my domain controller might be down. Let me check. Nope, still up. Okay, so let me just run that. Oh, this happened the other day too. It's because I didn't pass a hash correctly. There we go. All right, so again, hey, don't be like me. Change the, if you're going to run a hash, change the P to an H, an uppercase H, so you can pass the hash correctly. And this is what it looks like. Okay, so like I said, it just says, hey, I don't have any read permissions. So this kind of can go into the groups of things. And let me just clean this up. So let me run this one more time just so we can see. So group, so this group, all right, is allowed to read those passwords. So now if I were to use another LDAP feature, which is group enumeration, I can just run groups by itself and it's going to dump out all the groups. I can, like you see here, throw something in quotes, or, you know, if I don't need quotes, I can just throw it in there. And just to show that, I'll remove this quote. And it's going to enumerate this one group for me and spit out who's in it. And this is why Darth Maul can read that password, because that user is in the group that is allowed to read the password. Okay, so group enumeration can be cool. And like I said, if you omit any group from it, it's just going to dump all the groups out. And this looks pretty busy. You know, I can adjust the font size to make it a little bit cleaner, but you get all the different groups. And then you can see the number of users that are within that group. So, you know, it might be worth looking at if you didn't already enumerate how many, you know, admins are, or how many users are in this group. You can start kind of looking through that. Okay, so let me clean this up. And continuing on with groups though, would be computers. So again, just kind of enumerating things. And if we were to look at computers, kind of already know this one. But there are some other ones. So we knew and identified some just from, you know, our initial SMB generate the host files, and then we kind of also identified some through unconstrained delegation enumeration. But now you can see there's more, right? So we have a few others down here. There's Jedi. Just means those might not be up and running right now. Okay, so initially it was Star Wars, DC, Wookiee, and Dathomir here were all up, and the other ones are not. So enumerating computers can be helpful to see what all is there and what all is not currently alive or up and running at that time. We've already identified the domain controller, but, you know, in a different environment, it might be worth running the DC list to identify the domain controllers along with their IP addresses and stuff like that. So this is all just really just getting down into the weeds with enumeration and just identifying as much information as possible. Other things you can do is identify the SID, which might come in helpful, especially if you were doing some sort of attack that requires a SID, right, like an extra SIDS attack. This is some of the information you'll definitely need, right? And you can easily quickly pull that down without having to be on the host or using another tool. You can just sit here within Netexec and do this. So we've already covered a pretty solid amount of things that are just option related. And the last one going to hit is the Bloodhound one. So I've done this in another video, but because this is strictly LDAP related, I'm just going to run Bloodhound, and then you need to add the collection option, and I'm pretty sure it's just one dash, but I'll find out in a minute if it is not. And all right, so cool, this happens, and it's just it can't find my domain controller, or I'm sorry, a DNS server, right? So this is where it says, hey, I can specify a domain or a DNS server. It's telling me that. So I can try that. I can try the -D and then just throw in the domain to see if that remedies this one. And it didn't. Okay, so maybe I could either, there's nothing wrong with keeping it in there, but I can also put in the DNS server. And if you were to look under help, it would show you this option for DNS server. And I'm just going to throw in the IP. You can throw in the domain name or the fully qualified domain, whatever it is you want for your DNS server. And there you go. So it ran all of collections. So it tells you all the different collections that it is pulling down for you, and then it tells you exactly where your zip file is for uploading into Bloodhound. I know with other things like Spider Plus, you can say, hey, I want that information here. Not so much here. I didn't never see an output kind of flag on there. I mean, I can always try and just arrow it out to something, but this is fine. I could easily just copy this into my current working directory and then upload it over, or just navigate here if I wanted to, whatever. But that will work for Bloodhound ingestion, and that really wraps up all the different options within the LDAP protocol. So now I'm going to roll over into the modules that are available, and just like with SMB, a -L will list out all the modules. And like I said, most of these are all going to be low-level user. There is one high-privileged user, and that's for performing raise child. And since I don't have a child parent environment established here, I can't really showcase that, but that's what it would do. It's basically performing an extra SIDS attack to escalate from a child to a parent domain. But here it is, low privilege modules, and you can get a lot of information from them. So some of these are a little redundant because we've already seen information spit out from other commands, right? But they might be more streamlined into, hey, I just want to showcase that information for a screenshot or something, and it might be worth running instead. But starting things off, I'm going to just kind of go through some of these, not all of them. And the first one I'll knock out is your machine account quota. So let me clean this up. And again, just to get into the modules to view the options, it's a -M for the module name. And then if you needed to look to see if there are any options, --options will give it to you. And for this one, there isn't any. You just run it as is, and it's going to perform the enumeration for you. And you can see that this domain controller has the default machine account quota of 10, so I can start making machine accounts if I wanted to. And that was showcased in the SMB video. So if you're unfamiliar with that, you can venture over and check that one out. So another one that was in there is the Certipy one. So you can use Certipy find. So again, just like before, I can go Certipy, and I'll make sure I've spelled that right. I'm pretty sure that's it. And then I'm gonna throw options in here to see if there are any, and there are. Okay, so it looks like I can run this as is, and it's going to show vulnerable configurations, right? And let's see. then it looks like you can export things to text, CSV, JSONs. I'm just going to run this thing without any options, and this is running as the user DMAL with password against the domain controller on LDAP and see what comes back. And if it doesn't come back with any, it just means that my my certificate authority is down. Okay, nope, certificate authority is up, cool. And this, it's no different than running Certipy. If you're not familiar with that, that's just another tool to look for different escalation, privilege escalation paths via certificate authorities and certificate templates and things like that. So, excuse me, you can see that there is, I can use this escalation 8 here. Looks like there's escalation 4, and that is because this user is in some different, has some different permissions that aren't very good, and it looks like there are two other escalation paths here as well. So from here, I mean, you can't actually continue on and abuse this with Netexec, but that's where I can go, okay, cool, I can abuse this, and I could do that right now, right? So because probably have a little bit of time, let me run through that real quick. So I can use NTLM relay to perform the relaying for that escalation 8 attack, and I can just start that off. It should run. All right, cool, it's running, and then I can jump over into here or here and run the SMB attack, which is using coercion. So if I were to, again, this kind of goes outside of the world of LDAP, but if I'm going to go and try to abuse this, let's list those SMB ones out. And this is I need to coerce, run some sort of coercion. So coerce plus is a low-level user one, and it's for privilege escalation. And let's run this real quick just for fun. Clean this up. 10. All right, go there. Just gonna keep modifying this, and let's look at the options before we run this thing. So you can see the different methods that it is going to run. You can just leave that blank if you wanted, but just know that it's gonna send them all. So if you wanted to get specific, you could do method equals. We'll do that. I need to set up the listener, which would be this host, and that should be a 10.8, so we'll set that. Okay, so let me just run this up. Let's start setting these options up. And the first one, let's just run listener equals, and that's where I'm running my NTLM relay. So that is 10.10, 10.8, and then I said what I was going to do, method equals, and we can just run with printer bug for now because it should be vulnerable. And you could also just use aliases, but I think we'll just write those out here. All right, and then I can run that. And I got a logon failure, and that is interesting. Especially since that is a domain admin here. And this is like the first time I didn't actually run with the hash and not change that. So let me run DMAL here, and that one worked. Okay, so shows vulnerable, printer bug worked. Let me check NTLM relay and see if I got anything, and it did. So it successfully abused the escalation 8 vulnerability that was identified with certify find. And now if I were to list this out, you can see that I now have a certificate that I can now use, and I showcase that abuse in the SMB video. So okay, so that is the Certipy find module. The other one what we saw was user description. Let me just so looking at credential dumping, and I said user description, so I'll just copy that. Let's just run through here. Let me clean this up. And I don't think there are any options here. Oh, there are. Okay, so there are some options that you can throw in here, but I'm just going to run this as is and see what we get back. And there are, and it saves it to a file. and as a log file. But it throws back any account that has something in the description field. So it doesn't mean it's always going to throw back passwords. It's just, hey, if there is information in a description field, it tosses it back. If there isn't, you're not going to get a result here. Even though it says it saved 5 user descriptions, it's only displaying the 3. I mean, I guess I can cat this out real quick to see what else is in the file itself. And it also, okay, so it also included administrator and guest account. It just didn't display it here. So not a bad tool to have, especially, you know, if that's something you wanted to add in for a screenshot or something like that. All right, and so the last module we'll kind of go over here is a DACL related one. So let's go to -L again to list them out, and it's DACL read. So this reads read and back up the discretionary access control list of objects, and be careful because it cannot read DACLs recursively. Okay, so let's clean this up, run that up, and see what all that entails. I need to give it the options, so let's see what that is. All right, so you've got target DN, principal action, ACE type, rights GUID. I got it. So, you know, there's a few ways you can do this. I honestly think I prefer using like DACL edit, but this, again, if you just wanted to kind of camp out within one tool, you can do it here. Or if one isn't showing you everything, or if you think the screenshots look better with one than the other, it's all personal preference. But we can check things out, and let's just look at some targets here. Let's pick on Chewbacca, because last I remember that user did not have good things going, and I can't spell principal. And that would be, let's look at account operators just to see if the user is doing anything there. And we can throw rights. There are, and it gave you examples. I'm just going to wildcard it and see if that works here. It does. Okay, so it looks like that user has full control, so like a generic all is what it looks like it has, because full control here. So that user has full control over account operators. And then if you wanted to, could always just kind of look at that, compare it to here. Let's see. Now we're getting outside of the realm of what I was supposed to be doing here. But let's go. At least I know this user's password. Super easy. Oop. And then DCIP is 10.10.100, and we'll go target is Chewbacca, and then principal. So pretty much the same command here, right? And it works. Okay, cool. So, you know, like I said, I kind of prefer the output from this tool over the other. But again, the same thing works here, and you know, you kind of keep going with that. So if you wanted to run something else, let's go with some other ones. Who do we have here? Oh, DMAL always has something going on. Let's see if he's got anything over Han Solo, or Han Solo over him rather. Let's see. And let's add some other things here. Let's add ACE type equals allowed. Probably didn't need to do that, and it didn't like that. Oh, well, that could be UI. I'm on DACL edit. I want to be here. So let me back up here. I was wondering why that was looking a bit different. And then let me just add this. And let's go, who did I say? DMAL. Okay, and then now we can see that Han Solo looks like has full control or generic all over DMAL here. Okay, so good information, because then that can be abused. And let's just say maybe your Bloodhound results didn't pull this information in, so you had to do some manual enumeration to identify a potential attack path forward. So though that in a nutshell is your LDAP protocol. So there's plenty of options. There's some overlap with the SMB protocol, especially when it comes down to the authentication piece, and then a couple of other things like user enumeration, password policy, and things like that. But it also extends your ability to run, LDAP queries, enumerate groups, enumerate DACLs, perform certificate of enumeration as well, and leverage a lot of this all from just being having a low level user account. So that's it for this one. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments and I'll answer them when I get some time. And that's it.